Hi, I'm County Executive Barry Glassman, coming to you from our historic Gorsuch Justing House. Welcome to this year's Agricultural Symposium, brought to you by the Farmers and Community Partnership of Harford County, Maryland. Our third annual event is called Rooted in Agriculture, and we're excited to share it with a wider audience in this virtual format. First of all, I want to thank all of our participants and county residents for supporting our agricultural sector. And a shout out also goes to the Harford County Public School students and their families who are joining us today. We are delighted to welcome our regional and national audiences, especially the members of the National Society of Descendants of American Farmers. And finally, a special welcome to our international audience. We hope everyone will enjoy learning about Harford County's leadership in soil conservation, land stewardship, and protecting the Chesapeake Bay. And now, on behalf of the Farmers and Community Partnership of Harford County, we are proud to bring you our symposium, Rooted in Agriculture.
Hello, my name is Janice Sue Regal, and I'm the President National of the National Society Descendants of American Farmers. Now, you probably have not heard of our society. We are much like other lineage societies, except we honor the past, the present, and the future American farmers. 60% of our one-time fee goes directly to scholarships in agriculture and farming. We have over 1,100 members, and we have fun. We wish you a magnificent and happy day. And if you need any information on the National Society Descendants of American Farmers, please call me. My personal phone number is 972-743-5406. And again, my name is Janice Sue Regal, and I am the President National of this marvelous organization. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. We're the Martin family, Danny and Paul, my wife. We're here to tell you a little bit about the Society of Descendants of American Farmers. I'm fortunate to be one of the founders, so is Paul. We now have over 1,000 members in almost all of our states. You get a beautiful certificate as well, because not only is this an agricultural society, it's a hereditary society, and you'll see here that one of Danny's ancestors is the Polk family, which was the same family as George Washington. We learn that through the society. So not only are we supporting farmers, but we learn about our ancestors, which is very important. So thank you very much to President National Janice Sue Regal, and we look forward to having you join us in the society.
Hi, my name is Steve Rouse, and I'm a farmer here in Harford County. I'm coming to you live from Harford County's Joesting Gorsuch Historic Farmhouse on the grounds of the Agricultural Center and our new agricultural incubator called The Grove. Now, today's program is the third annual symposium on Harford's Farms and Community, produced and conceived by Harford's Farmers and Community Partnership. It's going to be a great day. And we want to thank our sponsors, Harford Community College, Harford County Government, Harford County Farm Bureau, Harford Soil Conservation District, and the National Society Descendants of American Farmers. Let me introduce you to Dr. Sharon Stowers, Professor of Anthropology and Sociology at Harford Community College and the facilitator of the Farmers and Community Partnership. Sharon, it's great to see you.
Hi, Steve. I'm so glad to be able to talk to you about our Harford and Community Partnership group. We know that people are watching from around the country, and we hope that they can use this as a model for their own communities about how to bring communities and farmers together to solve the complex problems that are happening in our food system today. So this was started by Harford Community College, an initiative where was hoping that faculty would come out into the community and share their expertise. And as a nutritional anthropologist, I've been delighted to facilitate this great group, because we come together as our mission is to educate the community members on the realities that farmers face, but also to help our farmers by advocating for great legislation that supports them. So farming today is very exciting, but also very challenging. Our farmers face huge issues around regulations, around new technology, and even COVID-19 has impacted them a great deal. So farmers are having to retool and to compete with large corporations like Amazon and deliver right to your door, for example. And many of our farmers who want to become organic have difficulty doing so because there are many, many regulations that they have to jump through in order to have a certified organic farm. I think many of the people in our county and around the country don't understand some of the constraints that they face as they try to bring us healthy food for our future. So we're working together, hopefully, to create a wonderful food system for this generation and many to come.
Great. Thank you, Sharon, so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. You know, and the thing about Sharon is she's just made massive contributions to today's event as well. Let me introduce you to my co-host. Yes, there is one today, Sarah Sampson. Sarah, how are you?
Hello, doing well. How are you?
Good, good. We're excited to be here for sure. From Harford County originally, educated in our great public schools, and she's the former producer of Maryland Farm and Harvest and current producer of Outdoors Maryland, both of course for Maryland Public Television.
Hi, yeah, great to be here. We have such an exciting program today called Rooted in Agriculture. Our program will celebrate our farmers and so much more, and along the way we hope you will learn a little bit about the history of Harford's sustainable agriculture movement and the exciting work being done today on Harford's farms. First though, let's talk about Harford's farm community. Harford County is in the Chesapeake Bay watershed and on the Susquehanna River, a region where Native Americans settled more than 10,000 years ago. Harford County has 628 farms of varying sizes. Most important, though, for us as a county is that 97% of our farms are family-owned and operated, and 43% of our 1,156 farmers are women. Yeah. The predominant crops on our 75,000 acres of farmland in Harford County are corn, soybeans, and soft red winter wheat, which is used for pretzels and crackers. Which
did you know that?
I did know that actually from producing.
I'm a farmer. I had no idea.
Yeah, I did know that because I pay attention to pretzels. Exactly. I like the snacks. As you'll learn today, there's also increasing diversification of our farming techniques and crops, everything from flowers to honey and of course hops for our homegrown distilleries. Our farmers generate over $700 million in economic activity. Did you know that one?
I think I'm about that much smarter.
And they do it all while preserving our precious land and water resources.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And we will be together all morning long here as this program continues. For those of you who want a program for today's event, please go to our webpage. You can find it at harfordcountymd.gov/3049. The number's right on the screen right now, I hope. So what will you see today on this program? Well, we'll get down and dirty in a soil pit.
All right.
We'll meet some friendly emus, and we will experience a delicious cooking demonstration with an amazing local chef.
I'll be there for that.
Yes, me too. Our webpage will also give you information about our speakers and a link for families called AgVenture, which will provide suggestions for activities for children of all ages. So let's get our program started here. We begin with a blessing by William Jones and Suzanne Crockett Jones, two Native American residents of Harford County.
We ask for blessings. I ask for my grandmother, the moon. First for the land of Harford County. And I ask for blessings for all the farmers who bring us all we need. And I ask for blessings from the Bay and for the Bay. She's our great water here in Maryland. And I ask for blessings for all the people who live in Harford County. And I ask for myself. Can you spirit call a blessing for us?
Sure. Tonka shilla waka tonka, hey wa yellow hey. Tonka shilla waka tonka, oshimaye. Tonka shilla o makia oi, maka kija oi hey. Chanu pawa kankile, hey wa yellow hey. Tonka shilla o makia oi, maka kija oi hey. Ho medakwiasi.
I came to Harford County after a lot of years of traveling. We were together, he was in the military and we moved many places. And I was so happy to find a home here in Harford County. So when we came to Forest Hill and found our property, we had to keep 5 acres as the stipulation of our purchase. We had to keep 5 acres in conservation. And so we never removed the trees, and we found among the woods wild raspberries, and we began to really understand our property as a connection to our past. Harvesting in the woods without disrupting any of its usual patterns. It became important to us to become stewards of this land, of our little patch of Harford County and Forest Hill.
We figured out ways to use the land without having to be destructive to it, and that we have natural raspberries that grow on the property, and we've been slowly cultivating the raspberries, helping them to spread in the forest. It also makes a nice spot for where we put our sweat lodge, and we continue our traditional religious observances. Susquehannock Indians were the primary Indians that lived here in Harford County, and I think of them often, of how they must have really loved this bay and the land of Harford County, the excellent hunting and fishing that the streams and woods provide. They must have been happy, prosperous people.
The blessing that we did was a smudging ceremony that involved sending the smoke of sage, and we used also sweetgrass, to the spirit world, asking for blessings. My thinking as I do this is that I'm asking for blessings from the moon, a grandmother, a female spirit that helps me accomplish what I need to accomplish, and has the power to give a blessing.
And the song is a spirit calling song. It's a Lakota spirit calling song. And it's asking the Creator to have pity on, or have mercy on the singer and on the people. Have mercy on his red children.
I came to Harford County after a lot of years of traveling. We were together, he was in the military and we moved many places. And I was so happy to find a home here in Harford County. This has become a home that I never would have dreamt of before we got here. I have my studio there, we have a garden, we have our raspberries. I never want to leave. We have everything we need.
As a Harford County native, I am so pleased to be here today and to introduce you all to Greg Merle, who is the program specialist at my alma mater, North Harford High School. Hi, Greg. How you doing?
Great, Sarah. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And thank all of you for joining us today. So excited to talk a little bit about the magnet program at North Harford High School. Just as you're going to learn today, the Harford County is rooted in agriculture. Well, so is North Harford High School. Dating back to 1950, when the school originated, agricultural education has always been a component of what we do. The new model, the Natural Resources and Agricultural Science Magnet Program, has allowed us to expand beyond the reach of North Harford High School to students all across Harford County. And so with this model, students can come to our distinct program and look at 4 different study areas: natural resources, plant science, small animal science, or large animal science, and utilize our 35-acre campus and all our facilities to learn about agricultural education and become stewards of the environment and of agriculture. So a little bit about the program and what we have to offer. The 35 acres has a forested area, a pond, a stream, and a wetland. So our natural resource students can go out and get field experiences. In addition, we have an aquaculture lab that features 5 200-gallon recirculating systems, as well as a fish wall for independent research. Our plant science students get to utilize our 40 by 70 foot greenhouse, and we grow things hydroponically. We grow seasonally for our plant sales, and we also grow hydroponic fodder for our animals.
Very cool.
Yeah, it is. And our small animal science, we have a wonderful indoor kennel system with a washroom. So we're able to reach out to the community, and people from the community can bring in their dogs and cats for health checks and for grooming.
That's great.
And then we have other facilities in there for other small companion animals, so our kids can study those for the nutritional and the differences between having those, at-home pets. For our large animal science, we have 2 barns, 3 pastures. We have horses, cows, sheep, pigs, and alpaca right on campus. Students take care of the farm every day. So just a great hands-on opportunity. Highlighted by Gracie, our fistulated cow.
And what's that?
Yeah, that is our cow with a port in the side, so we can open up that port sort of like a Tupperware container, and you can reach your hand inside and you can see how that first chamber of the stomach system and the digestion that's taking place, and all those microbes. So students can do research, and then we partner with a local vet who can then harvest that rumen fluid and use that for sick ruminant animals.
That's incredible.
It is incredible. I think one of the other interesting things we like to do is we have to thank our agricultural community, because they've been vital in reformulating this program. And so what our students do beginning in their sophomore year, they also go out and do research every year. And it's our ag community and the industries that support the ag community that sponsor these students as mentors and provide those unique hands-on experiences. And so from that, we like to give back also. And so we've been able to give back in several ways to the community. Starting with our first symposium, our GIS students, our Geographic Information System students, created a web app which connected farmers and the community. So farmers that had products to sell and things to offer, we were able to link them through this interactive web app, which is now run by Harford County.
And what's that called?
That's the Harford Farm Finder.
Great.
Great. And then, so this year we thought, how can we reach out? And so we wanted to reach out to our younger audience. And so for elementary and middle school students and families, as Steve referenced, kids of all ages, we have the Ag Venture series that is starting. And that is right on the website, and you can check that out. And what it does is provide simple links to places that you can go throughout Harford County to experience agricultural and natural resources.
Wow, that's fantastic. A lot of great information there, Greg. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right, now let's go to Indian Spring Farm in Darlington. Lee McDaniel owns this historic farm, which has its roots in Native American occupation in the 1600s. The land witnessed the American Revolution, and later in the 1930s, it became a central site for the modern sustainable agriculture movement. Now today, its beauty and history makes it a popular location for the film industry, which is pretty cool. Indian Spring Farm embodies our American history.
Hello, I'm Lee McDaniel. I'm the farmer here at Indian Spring Farm. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of the farm and a little bit about the history of my family. My family and my ancestors have been farming here in the Mid-Atlantic since 1649, about 300 years in New Jersey, and for the past 61 years here at Indian Spring Farm in Harford County. In the 1600s, Harford County was basically divided into two areas. South of Deer Creek, which traverses through Indian Spring Farm, was considered the European area, and north of the creek was considered Indian territory. So in the middle 1600s, there was a monastery built, the oldest monastery in the state of Maryland, on the neighboring property to the farm here. And the priest would come down, cross the creek into the Indian territory, and meet with the Native Americans and try to convert them to Catholicism. In the 1700s, the farm became a farm because there was an iron forge on Deer Creek that was owned by a British company. The land had to be cleared in order to have fuel, in order to run the iron forge on the creek. So much of the land was cleared of the 860 acres and has been farmed pretty much continuously since that time. The colonists won the Revolutionary War. The county sheriff came in and confiscated the British property and put it up for auction so that it became in private American hands from the Revolutionary War up until the present time. Another interesting thing is this is a historic area, and all of the Deer Creek, lower Deer Creek area is a National Historic District, and the French troops on their way to Yorktown, along with our colonist troops, in order to defeat the British, camped here at Indian Spring on their way down to Yorktown. The house that's behind me was built in two sections. The federal style part of the house was built in the 18-teens, but by the 1870s there was an addition put on the house, and the house was converted at that time to the Victorian style. In the beginning of the 20th century, this farm was owned by a person who later got into the newspaper business, but at that time the farm was a pony farm. They grew ponies here, and at some point after that, there also at that time, because of the size of the farm, there was a canning operation here as well, which was very common in Harford County in the late 1800s into the 20th century. As we got into the 20th century and refrigeration became more prevalent, many of the farms in Harford County switched to dairy operations. Many of the buildings here on the property were developed in the 1920s and 1930s. The property at that time was owned by the Symington family, a very prominent family in Baltimore City, and this became their summer property. They were able to create one of the top purebred Jersey herds in the nation at that time, and even in the 40s and 50s they were shipping, well, the 30s and the 40s they were shipping some of their purebred livestock throughout the world. One thing I'll say about all the previous owners of this property, they've always had an interest in conservation. You're going to hear, or you have heard, Peggy speak about the interest in conservation in Harford County. On this farm we have 7 streams, and 6 of the 7 streams have had mature trees on them in a buffer area. For as long as I can remember, even when I was a kid, they were mature trees. It just shows the interest and the previous owners have had in protecting the soils and taking care of the land. So in the 1959, when my parents bought the farm, of course it was still a dairy operation at that time. My father was more interested in production of milk, so the livestock changed from crossbred animals to Holsteins, which was sort of par for the course in the 1960s when I got out of college and switched over to beef cattle. And we had beef cattle from the 70s until 2010. And at that point, the cows weren't getting any younger, but I was getting older, so it was time for me to switch to something else. So since then, we've been in the row crop and hay business, growing corn, soybeans, and hay for the horse market, which is very, very important in Harford County because we have both the pleasure horse business and the racing, thoroughbred racing business, and it's a good market if you're growing hay. Indian Spring Farm is very fortunate because it's pretty much in the center of the Deer Creek watershed. The Deer Creek watershed basically is about 1/3 of Harford County, and it comes right through the center of the county. One of the unique things about it, we're only 10 miles from Interstate 95, and the Deer Creek watershed is probably the most pristine watershed between Boston and Washington, D.C., simply because the stewardship that the farmers and landowners have had here for 300 years now. We've been very fortunate. We have a good support from our county government, and our farmers realize with the population base we have here and the changes that are being made that we have a real opportunity to represent agriculture not only for our local area but for throughout the country. We're very fortunate to be in a place where there's a lot of people. Now there's some disadvantages to it as well, but to be in the I-95 corridor and have a state scenic designated scenic and wild river, one of the most pristine within the region right here in Harford County, is a blessing. When your family's been farming in the United States and in this mid-Atlantic region for almost 400 years now, you develop a certain philosophy in how you farm, and it's not something that happens overnight. You want to be able to not only produce good crops, but also to make sure that the land resource is going to be available for future generations. Of course, you're going to hear today about land preservation, but land conservation is a little bit different breed. It's all about managing the resources, and in our area, it's in order to manage those resources to protect the Chesapeake Bay, and more locally to protect Deer Creek or the tributaries towards Deer Creek. When you think about the Chesapeake Bay watershed that starts in Cooperstown, New York and comes all the way down here, everyone has a role in protecting that bay. Maryland, of course, is the recipient of most of the economic benefits of Chesapeake Bay. We've got the fishery resource, the hunting, we've got the recreational, and we've got the trade with the Port of Baltimore. All that is very important to our state of Maryland because it is part of our economic resource. So farmers have to do their part in order to preserve the quality of the Chesapeake Bay, as well as all the other citizens in Maryland and the region. Certainly as we look into 2050 and we're going to go to 9 or 10 billion people in the world, it's going to be very important that we maintain the natural resource in order to feed all those people, whether it's done through conventional farming, organic farming, or anything in between. Every element of agriculture contributes to meeting those goals of feeding all those people.
Harford County has such a rich and diverse history. Let's continue to explore that history from another location in Darlington as we begin to think about African Americans' contributions to Maryland agriculture. Africans first came to Maryland as enslaved peoples, and they brought to our country substantial knowledge and skills about farming, and especially about sustainable agriculture. Let's meet Dr. Iris Barnes, who will tell us more about the African American contribution to both the county and to the country.
My name is Dr. Iris Leigh Barnes, and I live here in Harford County. I am a historian, and I like to really focus on local history because the history here is great. We are up the street from Indian Springs Farm at the historic Hosanna School Museum in Darlington, Maryland. We are sitting inside the old, former classroom. It is a museum now. And this is actually located on land that was owned by Cupid Packer, who was a free man who bought 50 acres of land in the early 1800s, which was pretty unusual at that time for a black man to have that much land because, as you know, America had slavery. And then his son made provisions so the school could be built here in 1867. It's beautiful out here, and it's sacred ground to us. Some people wonder why Cupid Packer bought land out here in Darlington. Well, it probably was a very friendly environment. It was heavily occupied by Quakers who believed that the essence of God was in every man, therefore every man was created equal. And so they also were the leaders in the Anti-Slavery Society. And even out here, there was a Deer Creek Anti-Slavery Society. Before the Revolutionary War, enslaved Africans brought with them from their homeland knowledge and skills in various traditional farming methods that we use today, including shifting cultivation, terrace farming, mixed farming, and crop rotation. They were already used to, in their land in Africa, droughts, flooding, and erosion. And they were used to growing rice, millet, corn, or maize, they may have called it, and sweet potatoes or yams and okra and black-eyed peas, all of which later we call soul food. So, but also after World War I, Russell Lord and our Deer Creek farmers promoted these innovative techniques, they called them, when in fact they were using the very same techniques that Africans brought with them. Slave ships also brought along with them, besides the enslaved Africans, those slave ships really functioned as botanical gardens. How so? Because they brought with them seeds from plants from Africa. So that's why we have a lot of the plants that we have over here today, such as black-eyed peas and yams and okra. But in addition to that, the enslaved Africans had many skills. They knew how to make tools, mend fences, clear fields, work with livestock, you name it. They already had skills that were adopted and adapted here in the United States. As the backbone of the American economy, enslaved Africans were exploited for their muscle and for their knowledge of farming and cultivation. Before the Civil War, Maryland had the largest number of free blacks. In Harford County, as I mentioned, many of them bought land. Many African Americans acquired land because of their working relationships with white planters, but they didn't usually own the land. They were usually tenant farmers. But another good example of someone who did own their land was Albert Berry Sr., who in the 1880s had a large plot of land, and then his son also inherited that land, and then the next generation, and that was out here in the Darlington area. And even Albert also was instrumental in getting this school built. So he has quite a storied history and a contribution to his community. And this is one of the few examples of generational wealth carried forward. The turn of the century up until the 1920s was the height of black farming. Even though they were kind of relegated to swamplands and land that whites didn't really want, they still took those skills that they inherited from their African ancestors and cultivated that land. And they became very profitable during that time period. But it was short-lived, unfortunately. The Great Depression hit, and you had droughts, soil erosion, all of that. Now, that hit all farmers, but African American farmers were impacted more greatly. African Americans did not despair. As usual, they made provisions to help themselves and developed the self-help group. One of them, specifically for farmers, was the Colored Farmers Association and Cooperative Union, the CFA. And they would help each other with land disputes or trying to get equitable, low-interest loans and to keep their land in general through commodity prices, rising farm costs, and just high interest rates. There's so many issues that farmers face, and African Americans face those even more. Many African American farmers were also inventors, trying to find new ways to make that toil a little easier, to be more productive. We can talk about a few of them. In the earliest 20th century, George Washington Carver, who was a professor at Tuskegee Institute. But before that, he was a farmer, and he specialized in peanuts. And he created all kinds of uses for peanuts. But bringing it a little closer to home, in Maryland, we have Henry Blair, who in 1834 invented the corn seed planter. Now this planter was very innovative and time-saving. It saved the work of 8 men. And then right here in Havre de Grace, yes, Havre de Grace in Harford County, we do have an inventor that we claim named Daniel Ross, who in 1869 developed an improvement to a boat propeller. Of course, you use boats for all kinds of travel, whether you're a farmer or anyone else, but he was an African American from Havre de Grace who had a patent.
Harford County is a leader in land preservation and soil conservation. Now let's hear from Dr. Peggy Eppig, an expert who has researched and written on the history of Harford's sustainable agriculture movement. Following Peggy's talk, we'll get down in the dirt in a soil pit.
Hi everybody, my name is Peggy Eppig. I work for the Maryland Agricultural Education Foundation in Harford County, an organization that works statewide in Maryland to promote agricultural education, K through 12, undergrad and professional. Today I'm talking to you from Indian Springs Farm in Harford County, part of the Deer Creek watershed that drains water from Deer Creek into the Susquehanna River that eventually becomes the Chesapeake Bay. This farm is critical to the story I'm about to tell you. I'll start with Russell Lord. So Russell Lord, a native of Baltimore County, signed up to fight with the Maryland 101st Artillery in World War I. He and thousands of others from Baltimore and Harford County served overseas, Russell Lord in the artillery unit and others in various capacities, but most of them farm boys from agricultural areas across Maryland and the United States. While they were there, their unit was billeted at a local farm behind the Western Front, just a few miles. And they were waiting for their call-up in the spring of 1918. While they were waiting for their call-up to the front lines, they were put to work by the local farmers, whose boys were also serving in battle. And their main job as reservists in the artillery was to harvest hay, take care of the cattle, feed the pigs, bring in the potatoes, and basically do the work of the men and boys who were off fighting while they were waiting to be called up to the Western Front. So you have to picture these artillerymen from Maryland, from Harford County and Baltimore County, doing what they've always done, but in uniform in France. One of the things that Russell Lord noticed while he was serving, doing his farm work, was that the land, which had been farmed for 700, 800 years, was just as fertile as any land he had ever seen. And the backstory here is that Lord and all these other agricultural kids, men and boys coming from the States, were coming from a landscape that had been pretty devastated here in the States. In the early 1900s and the late 1800s, there were a round of severe droughts, particularly for the East Coast, followed by periods of intense rainfall, monsoon-like seasons of rainfall. And in the early 1900s, the situations in Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, northern New Jersey were pretty severe. Lots of land had washed off into the creeks and rivers. Lots of soil had flooded the bays and rivers, and landscapes like this were pretty desolate. So here's Russell Lord and his colleagues working on a farm in France that had been going strong for 800 years. So knowing what was facing him when he got home and seeing in front of him what he was working with, he began to investigate some of the techniques that the local farmers were using to preserve land. He wasn't the only one. Lots of other soldiers who were, pressed to service on farms also noticed. When he returned from World War I as an Army veteran, artillery veteran, he set to work out in Ohio, got a job as an extension educator in Ohio, traveled around the state. Ohio was severely affected by droughts and rainfall for about 20 years prior. So he was looking at a really devastated landscape. He went around working with farmers and other journalists like himself to talk about how those techniques that he learned in France, like rotational grazing, using grass strips to control water runoff, contour farming, composting the soil, techniques that had kept land in good service for hundreds of years, how those techniques could translate to restore the landscape in Ohio and make those farms profitable. One of the things that was facing all farmers in the States after the war was war surplus. So prices were dropping for goods that farmers had made a lot of money on, selling for military interests to fund, to feed soldiers, to supply oils and fats and meat protein and grains and hemp to the military. Now all these products were sitting in storehouses or in the fields with no buyers. So an agricultural recession, devastated landscape, but Russell Lord thought he was onto something. So as a journalist and as an educator with Extension, he went around the state of Ohio and tried to implement some of those techniques he'd learned in France, as did those other veterans who made the same observations all around the country. This was particularly true in New York and Pennsylvania. So FDR, who was at that time in the 20s governor of New York, and Gifford Pinchot, who was governor of Pennsylvania, were also faced with those kinds of landscapes that Russell Lord was seeing in Ohio. Deep gullies, sparse soil cover, no cover crops, deforestation, and poverty. So FDR, as governor, decided to employ all of these World War I veterans as part of a land army. And he set out to reforest and reclaim landscapes in New York State. Gifford Pinchot, who had served under Teddy Roosevelt as the first director of the Forestry Department, U.S. Forest Service, did the same in Pennsylvania. So in the early 1920s, you had these two big states employing thousands, tens of thousands of World War I veterans to replant trees, to reclaim soil, and to introduce those techniques to farmers and landowners that would bring soil quality back. Russell Lord moved back home, 1922, 1923, and moved here to Harford County. I could probably pitch a stone, although I'm not that good a pitcher, and hit the farm where he moved to, Thorn Meadow, right across the creek. He lived there with his wife, it was a pretty bad situation. It was a rundown farm, dilapidated, gullied, ravined, thus the name Thorn Meadow pretty much described what it looked like. But he set about trying to restore his own farm in those techniques that he was educating farmers in Ohio about, that they were using in New York and Pennsylvania. And he talked to local farmers, like the folks here at Indian Springs Farm. Pretty soon, he was picked up and employed by the USDA under the leadership of Henry Wallace as the Secretary of Agriculture. They became fast friends. And Lord was dividing his time between Harford County and Washington, D.C., doing a lot of what he did in Ohio, promoting soil conservation techniques, speaking directly to farmers, offering tours around farm to see how farms are being reclaimed and restored. Here in Harford County, the farmers along the Deer Creek watershed, runs about 40 miles from Susquehanna to almost, just beyond the Pennsylvania state line. So farmers all along this creek valley also were on board with trying to restore and reclaim their farms. Indian Springs was one of them. So as early as the mid-1930s, at the time the New Deal was starting under FDR, farmers were already employing a lot of those techniques that had been used by farmers in New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, around the eastern states to try to heal the gullies, to replant forests, to bring fertility back to the soil, rotational grazing, moving cattle from pasture to pasture, sometimes day by day, so they weren't too long on the grass. So Russell Lord is splitting his time between his farm here in Harford County, just over the rise, and DC, and he's getting quite a name for himself now. He's quite the soil advocate, quite the soil conservationist. He begins to not only work nationally, but concentrating his efforts right here in Harford County with these Deer Creek watershed farmers. He begins an organization that becomes known as the Friends of the Land in Harford County. And within a year, Friends of the Land becomes a national soil advocacy group. The Friends of the Land name was on purpose. A lot of the Deer Creek watershed farmers were, and still are, Quakers. So as friends, they worked together under stewardship to restore the land. The Friends of the Land organization worked throughout the nation with a membership of about 10 to 15,000 members to conduct farm tours, to take people, farmers and non-farmers alike, to see the worst case studies and see the best case studies in soil and farm restoration. This went on through the 1930s and up until World War II, when everything changed. So here we go again. All the boys and men go overseas to fight, leaving farms in okay condition. But the Friends of the Land picked up where the USDA and other groups like Soil Conservation and CCC, the Civilian Conservation Organization, had to leave off because of the war. So through the 1940s into the 1950s, Friends of the Land was very active across the nation, but particularly so right here in Maryland, right here in Harford County. The Friends of the Land lasted till about 1956, 1957, went disbanded. But that group of advocates and activists left a great legacy. The Friends of the Land splintered out and became numerous other organizations, some of which still exist today, including the Deer Creek Watershed Association, and still do this good work of restoring and holding land for future generations. It's all about stewardship. So Russell Lord, in his old age, retired to the town of Bel Air, lived just off of Main Street. His place is no longer there, but his legacy and the work of all of these farmers continues today in Harford County. We're really proud of the fact that Friends of the Land, Russell Lord, and these farmers really were the key to beginning the sustainable agriculture movement in the United States. They called it the permanent agriculture movement. But over time, it's shifted to something that we might recognize more as sustainable. Basically, farming today for generations in the future. So land is available, that land is healthy, it's well forested, and that the products that come off this land are profitable for the farmer and healthy for the consumers. So Friends of the Land, even though it's not around anymore, the legacy is right here. And numerous other organizations, not only in Harford County, but throughout the nation. Sustainable agriculture has gone by a couple different names, iterations. Now we're calling it restorative agriculture. Some people call it other names. It has nothing to do so much with organic or conventional, but how the land is cared for. And that's key to all of this. And today at Indian Springs Farm, I think we have a great view of contour farming, of mixing up crops on the farm, rotational crop farming where you don't plant the same thing over and over every year. The woods are healthy, the creek is healthy. So this is a great model, one farm out of dozens and dozens that in the 1920s and 30s took it upon themselves to start farming a little differently. Actually, the way they were farming in France, to keep the land around for 700 and 800 years more. Some of the legacy organizations that branched off of Friends of the Land include a really amazing organization named for the Friends of the Land called the Land Institute, and it's out in Kansas. They've been working about 25, 30 years now as the Land Institute as a scientific organization and a public education organization to perennialize wheat and other grains so that these grains don't have to be replanted every year. In other words, we don't have to disturb the soil to replant them. So the Land Institute is really close to a perennial grain that they've crossbred to a prairie grain, a natural prairie grass. So by using our favorite grains here for, say, breads and pastas, crossbreeding and backcrossing with some native grasses to make these grains perennial. They're doing great work, the Land Institute. There was a strong horticultural representation in the Friends of the Land. They weren't farmers per se, but they were growers. Some were greenhouse growers, some were just backyard gardeners. But that strong representation carried forward with the U.S. Gardening Federation. There were all kinds of smaller organizations that popped out from that small subgroup. And of course, different agricultural education organizations arose from the Friends of the Land, at least through various farmers promoting in Maryland and wanting to continue to promote ag education as stewardship, as taking care of landscapes that are threatened by development, for instance, or military bases, or other large land consuming groups. Other organizations that spun off of Friends of the Land include parts of existing organizations. So Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H were all heavily influenced to include programs within their existing organizations that included stewardship. Isaac Walton League, Ducks Unlimited, Trout Unlimited, all of these organizations that were maybe already existing or about to form took elements of land stewardship from Friends of the Land, soil conservation, USDA in the 1940s and 50s, and added these components to their work.
Good morning. My name is Andrew League. I'm a conservation engineering technician with Harford County Soil Conservation District in Harford County, Maryland. Let us offer a definition of soil as defined by the Soil Science Society of America. Soil is a mixture of minerals, dead and living organisms, air, and water. These four ingredients react with one another in amazing ways, making soil one of our planet's most dynamic and important natural resources. So, we see soil is made up of a combination of minerals, inorganic matter like decaying rocks, organic matter, both living and dead, air and water. But we also think of soil in many other ways. Soil is special. It is precious. It connects us to Earth in different ways. Sayings like native land, home turf, my land, Mother Earth, and even breadbasket are a few examples of terms we use to describe our relationship to the soils around us. When we think of soil, we generally think in terms of agricultural production, both small and large scale, farming, and how we grow our food. But soil and its classification are extremely important to other aspects of our society. For instance, non-agricultural uses of soil classification and characteristics are important for engineers to design and place buildings or roadways, create recreational opportunities such as lakes, and even siting waste disposal areas. Soil classification and characteristics can also be important when looking for building materials, such as granite for a countertop or even clay for bricks. So where does soil come from? How is it made? Why is it so different? In Harford County, Maryland, for example, we have mapped 34 different soil types, all of them different based on soil forming factors we just spoke about. Did you know that Maryland has an official state soil? It's called sassafras, and it is one of the first soil series established in the early days of soil survey activities in 1901. Today, here at Indian Spring Farm, we're going to explore and look at one type of soil, Neshaminy silt loam with 3 to 8% slopes. Neshaminy soil series consists of deep, well-drained, level to steep soils in the Piedmont Plateau. These soils formed in material deeply weathered in place from semi-basic rocks or mixed basic and acidic rocks. Neshaminy soils are moderately permeable and have a high available water capacity, as well as a very high natural content of basic plant nutrients, making it excellent ground for farming.
In our soil pit area, the land has been in agricultural production for several hundred, if not 1,000 years. Native Americans in our area would typically burn a patch of forest to clear the trees and underbrush, then plant and harvest crops such as corn, beans, and squash. Agricultural production in the early years of European settlement typically involved clearing the forest, removing stumps, plowing the ground, then planting and harvesting crops. Over time, the organic material on and near the top was gradually mixed with the less organic, more mineral-like material underneath. But we can still see the changes in the soil profile that help us determine the different soil layers.
Hi, I'm Tim Gerber. I'm a soil scientist that serves as an Earth Team volunteer with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. I served for 35 years as a soil scientist with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and at times I've served as an adjunct professor of soil science at Hartford Community College. Well, Andrew did a great job of introducing why we call it soil and not just dirt. It's really kind of a sacred thing. The problem with soil, for understanding it, is it's concealed. And so it takes backhoe to reveal some things that are in the soil. And what I hope to do is go through these top 4 feet of soil, and together with Kylan we'll observe and discover some things together. So we'll start out right with the topsoil. I use this knife just to kind of pick it apart, see how it holds together, how it falls, kind of feel it as I go. And I'm looking for where the colors change mostly. That's the most obvious difference. In some cases it's the shapes of the aggregates, but I'm going to say that right across from there to there, and we'll stick this golf tee in there. That's where the topsoil ends and the subsoil starts. We'll talk some more about topsoil and subsoil in a minute after, well, let's just collect some samples here. Now, the subsoil, still lots of roots, looks like lots of wormholes. Wow, there's a wormhole that's been filled up with topsoil material in it. Right around here, it starts to change again. You get to see these sort of look like striations of light colors and dark colors. And so I'm going to put another one right in there and call this all the subsoil, or soil scientists refer to this as the A horizon, and this is the B horizon. And then the horizon underneath it, of course, would be C. The pit was dug to about 4 feet. We didn't encounter many rocks, but there's an excavation nearby, and so I collected some rocks from that. You can see it's mostly dark minerals in the rock with some lighter minerals. But this is what I found in the excavation most. And so you can see a bit of a pattern between the light and dark colors in the sea horizon and the rock itself. So let's go through sort of a inquiry, I guess, how from something like this, hard, with no pores, could become something like this. So we'll try and figure out what the soil reveals to us about the changes from a hard rock with no pores to this kind of soil. Weathering takes a long time, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years to convert that rock just to the sea horizon, which really isn't a very conducive environment for plant roots, but it's a start. When the A horizon first formed, when the seeds started to grow, then soil formation could start. So we'll look a little bit at the A horizon, or the topsoil. One thing that sticks out is this line is really sharp, and it's really unnaturally sharp, and that's because it marks where the bottom of the plow layer was. Originally, the topsoil in a forested environment would have been only maybe 2 or 3 inches thick with lots of leaves on top. And especially when European settlement started, the soil was turned over with the plow, and so that 3 inches was mixed with the horizon underneath it to form this sharp break that's continued for, in this case, of more than 200 years. I'd like to look a little bit to see if the upper 3 or 4 inches is different than the lower part. And it's pretty subtle, but Mr. McDaniel has been using no-till for the last 10 or 15 years, and so it hasn't been plowed during those years. Plowing, when it gets turned over, the soil, the organic matter oxidizes, what makes it dark, goes into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, and so you might be able to see a slight difference between the upper 3 or so inches and the lower part. I guess it's an 8-inch depth of the A horizon. By not tilling it, by using cover crops, and leaving it on the surface, the organic matter accumulates there, and so it's actually being regenerative. It's looking in the upper 3 inches more like it did under forest vegetation. Let's move on to the B horizon. It's a little bit redder. The color, the red color comes from iron. Not a lot of iron, maybe 2 or 3%, but the iron minerals are coating the quartz grain to give it that color. Soil tells us that there once was a layer underneath here before plowing that was not as red, more of an ashy color, I guess, that the iron came from. And the reason it's not there is because there has been lots of erosion over the years. Just geologic erosion at first, and then accelerated erosion during the early times of plowing. There was a iron forge in the area, and so needed lots and lots of trees to create charcoal to heat up and forge the iron. And so this was all cleared at one time, and there probably was tons of soil eroded each year from erosion. And it was really not until the middle of the 20th century that conservation practices became really, really important for conserving the soil. For soils around here that form in this climate, with forest vegetation being the native vegetation, you expect there to be about 20% more clay in the subsoil than the topsoil. It's a matter of over thousands of years. The clay particles move down during a storm when soil goes from bone dry to saturated, and those clay particles stay in the subsoil. And they're really important. Not only, as I said before, the subsoil stores water for crops to grow, but the subsoil also stores lots of nutrients, and the more clay it has in it, the better its ability to store nutrients, especially cations. Let's take a little time to talk about the conversion from weathering rock to soil. We said weathering takes a long time, but it can be wiped out in a single rainstorm. And so the protection to preserve what little soil developed formed at first, you need some kind of an A horizon. We're going to work our way back and look at the soil closely. And Kylan Keehan, senior at North Hartford High School, and Miss Maryland Agriculture 2020 is going to be doing some discovery work on the samples that I collected a little bit ago. So let's look at the sea horizon first, the start of things. How does it break up, Kylan?
While I'm pushing into it, it is breaking up pretty easily, but in no specific shape. You can see right here. You can't really see any lines, but when you look in the sea horizon in the pit, there are a lot of lines.
You see any roots at all?
In this horizon, I do not see any roots. Hopefully we will see some in the next horizons.
Any critters?
No, no critters. Let's look at another one, see if we can find something. Yep, there is no critters in this one either.
So that has lots more pore space than the rock that I had a while ago.
It does.
So it has that going for it.
Mm-hmm.
How about the A horizon? It should be a big contrast. What do you see there?
This horizon is much darker than the sea horizon. You can see the difference. The big one is the A horizon and the smaller one is the C horizon. This one has a little bit more red, iron, and this one's a little darker, probably more organic matter. As I break it up, it's a little bit more challenging to break up, but we do see lots of grass roots in this. Here's some more roots. And you can see this breaks up and it has more shapes to it than the sea horizon did.
Textbooks say that it breaks out into sort of cottage cheesy taste.
It does. It looks a lot
shapes.
like cottage cheese.
So kind of crumbly, I guess, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, how about the B horizon?
Here is the B horizon. Again, has more of a red tint than the A horizon did. And we still have some roots to it. Not as much as we had in the A horizon, but still a significant amount compared to the C horizon.
Lee's family has done over more than 2 centuries. It's really important to protect that subsoil, to keep it as thick as possible, to avoid what happened before, where plowing would incorporate some of the B horizon into the A horizon and just over time move the A horizon encroaching more and more on the B horizon. So it was the conservation movement that happened in the mid-20th century, and now the emphasis on soil health with cover crops and practices like that really make the A horizon the great receptor for rainfall. So instead of water running off and carrying soil with it, it's allowing the water to go in and be stored for crop production.
I hope you're all enjoying the show so far. We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll be telling the stories of all the different types and sizes of farms in our county.
Welcome back. Harford County is blessed with many diverse farms. A number of our farms are over 500 acres. These large farms require state-of-the-art techniques, but also use sustainable techniques on a large scale to protect the land and water. These techniques reduce erosion and capture carbon and hold it in the soil to do our part to minimize climate change. For more about that, let's meet Harford farmer Rick Holloway.
My name is Rick Holloway. I'm a farmer in Harford County, Maryland. Have been a farmer my whole life. Grew up on a family farm. My grandfather says that my brother and I, who farm together now, are the 7th generation on the farm. We farm about 1,800 acres, and our farm is situated on the banks of the Susquehanna River, about 8 miles north of where the Chesapeake Bay starts. We are 100% no-till, meaning we do not, when we plant our crops, we do not till the ground at all. We have, our planters are set up to go right into the ground without tillage. My grandfather started that in the 1950s. He was one of the first ones in the county here to do no-till, and one of the main reasons he did that was because our proximity to the Susquehanna River. We grow corn, soybeans, wheat, and hay, and that's all in a rotation. Corn and beans are rotated every other year, so a field that we have corn in this year will be beans next year, and then the corn the following year. And we also have a herd of 80 beef cows. And the main reason we have those is because we've got about 120 acres of ground. Most of it's out next to the river that we cannot crop farm because of the hills. And if we crop farmed it, it would all be in the Susquehanna River and eventually Chesapeake Bay. So that's why we do not do that. And we've had beef cows as long as I can remember. When I was a kid, we had beef cows. Crop rotation is better for the soil. You have different diseases in the different types of crops. You can get fungal diseases in corn, leaf diseases in corn that can knock yields back. And if you rotate that every other year with beans, soybeans do not get the same diseases as corn does, so that knocks that disease, the fungal diseases that live in the ground, that overwinter in the ground, it knocks them back when it's in the year of beans, and vice versa. Precision ag is multiple things. It's varying your fertilizer rate as you go across the field based on soil types. Some of your soil types hold fertilizer better than others. So we can go across the field with variable rate equipment spreading fertilizer. We are all computerized now. We track every field. We know what's planted in every field, what variety is planted in every field, and we can use that at the end of the year. We can lay our yield maps on top of our soil types and know what kind of what variety of corn or beans does best in which type of soil, and also how much fertilizer we need for the following year. That's one thing we have never done and will never do, is over-apply fertilizer, because for one thing, it's not good for the ground, because what the crop does not use is there all winter, and runoff can wash that into the waterways. And that's one reason, the main reason we use cover crops on as many acres as we can do in the fall, because that, it does multiple things. It holds the ground in the winter because it's actually a living crop in the winter. It recycles nutrients and builds organic matter in the soil, which is, that's what feeds the microbes and earthworms in the soil. And they in turn turn the fodder, what's left after harvest, they in turn take that and use that for food, and excrete from their excrement turns into organic matter, which makes the soil fluffier, and it allows the soil to hold more water in big rain events, so you get less runoff. large farms, I would say, are probably doing more for the environment, especially in Maryland, because a lot of the large farms, especially in Harford County, most of their ground is owner operator. The operator actually owns the ground, so they're not gonna do anything to hurt the soil, because we have to take care of the soil, because if we don't take care of the soil, it's not going to take care of us. And with us being no-till, that's where you get your release of carbon, is tilling the ground. That releases carbon into the atmosphere. Whereas what we're doing with no-till, it actually sequesters carbon. You're constantly learning. It's, you got the internet, magazines, we go to educational classes and seminars in the wintertime when we're not busy. You're always looking for new information about everything about farming. Like this cornfield will be beans next year. When we harvest the beans next year, you will hardly see any of this fodder because of no-till and the microbes and earthworms just eating it for lunch and dinner and breakfast. We're feeding the soil, and we can't abuse the soil, because if we abuse the soil, then it's not going to take care of us, and that's how we make our living. So we've got to take care of the soil. It's getting better because of sustainability and our precision ag. We're growing more. We're getting more off less acres, but we're still kind of in a grain deficit area. So I've lived here all my life, and I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. I've been to the Midwest and thought I wanted to go out there at one point, but it's just too flat out there for me. I like the rolling hills, the change of terrain, and all that here. So.
Well, we've just discussed farming large. Now let's talk about farming small. So let me show you what I do when I'm not hosting a symposium. I work a small farm. And then we'll also meet two other innovative farmers who do big things on small plots. But I think you're really going to fall in love with this first guy. I'm Steve Rouse. I own Rousedale Farm with my wife, Vicki Murdoch. And we've been farming there in Falston, Maryland for, about a dozen years seriously, a few more years before that, not so seriously. But what we do there, and the whole philosophy of the farm basically was to have a small farm where people could stop by and get whatever they needed, kind of a one-stop shop. We wanted to have produce, we wanted to have meat, we wanted to have eggs, and we've expanded in that way. As a matter of fact, this year, due to the pandemic, by about the end of February, beginning of March, we actually brought in some other local farms to start some online shopping, and also to beef up the merchandise in our market. I mean, our farm is only 6 acres, so it's not huge, but we plant about 3 to 4 acres. And it's amazing what you can get out of 3 to 4 acres. I mean, I tell people that come to the market all the time, they'll say, well, I wish we could grow some of our own stuff. If you have a balcony, you could probably grow enough tomatoes to last you through the winter. As far as the cover crops, this year we're planting crimson clover because we have honeybees, and the bees love the crimson clover. And we'll probably put in winter rye once some of the last crops are out, because that seems to be able to germinate in a little colder weather than the others. Conserving the soil is very important to us. We have a windrow that we planted 20 years ago to keep the winds off. We've put in ditches and whatever for water erosion. So we think about that a lot, because without that little layer of topsoil, you ain't got much. So let's talk about CSA. A lot of people, you say the word CSA and they kind of cock their head like a dog that heard a dog whistle. And I can tell they're not really sure what a CSA is. Well, CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And basically the way it works is that customers will sign up for your CSA in the early spring, usually winter, early spring. and usually the money is all up front, so that helps the farmer get seeds, everything he needs, his amendments and things to get things going in the year. But in exchange for that payment, the members that join the CSA will receive a weekly share of what's being harvested at the farm. Various lengths, some are 26 weeks, some are 15 weeks, whatever. So that's basically how CSA works. I think we may have been one of the first to start a chicken CSA a number of years ago, and that's kind of the same deal. I mean, we have meat chickens, we raise broilers, and we said, okay, well, if you want to sign up for one a week or one a month, 2 a month, up to 4 chickens a month, then we'll work for the same sort of deal as we did with the produce, only instead of produce, you're getting chicken. So it's a pretty good deal. A lot of people have told me they like the CSA because it forces them to eat better, and it forces them to try different things. Like I remember a few years ago, you know, we had the very famous kohlrabis, and people were like, what the heck are these things? They look like spaceships or something. And so, you know, you tell people, well, this is how you use those, this is what they taste like and whatever. I think the future looks good. I mean, this year, if there's anything good that happened from the pandemic was, I believe it opened the eyes to a lot of local people that, oh my gosh, there are local farms around here I didn't even know existed. And so I think that has helped all of us that do smaller farms and diverse farms for people, I mean, just for people recognizing you and knowing that you're here and so many others are. All the farmers need support, that's for sure. And small farmers need support from our neighbors, from our communities, and ways to support the small farmer is to support them by, you know, buying their products.
Hey, good morning. My name's Nick, one of the farmers here at Grandview, and we are at our family's farm in Forest Hill, Maryland, Grandview Farm, and we're going to take you along with us today and show you a little bit about what we do. Around 6 a.m. this time of year is when we get going. It's August, towards the end of August, so just depending on the time of year and when the sun's coming up is when we start our day, and we start it by almost always by opening up the egg layers. So they're in this structure overnight. They put themselves in there every evening. They have roost rails in there, and it's completely enclosed to protect them from predators. And so we open the doors in the morning, and they're going to hang out in the pasture today. So we keep the pigs on pasture and in the woods, or a combination here at the farm. So there's one now. This is an area they've been in. You can see they've eaten the leaves off of most of the plants, and they've eaten all the grass. And so they'll hang out here for just a little bit longer, and then we'll move them to a fresh piece of grass or a fresh area in the woods that hasn't been touched for several months. So there's 2 different types of chickens that we have here on the farm. Egg layers for eggs, and broilers for chicken or meat birds. So those broilers, they start out up in the brooder house, and we'll go check that out in a minute. But they come out here in the field for most of their life. And these are what we call chicken tractors, and they're floorless, and they protect the chickens from the elements and from predators, but still allow them full access to the pasture and fresh water and good food. And we move these structures every single day with the tractor, one space forward, and let the ground behind it rest. And that's how we keep broilers out on pasture. We're in the brooder house now on the farm, and this is where the meat birds, the broilers, and this time of year turkeys as well start out. So they're in here. They have a bunch of room to move around. They can get closer or further away from the light, whatever they choose. They have a bunch of room to move around. The cattle on the farm are 100% grass fed, so they never are fed grain throughout their entire lives. And we actually use just a single strand of electric fence to move them to a new piece of pasture every day so they get fresh grass. And they're on that space for 24 hours, and then it rests for several weeks or months. So our farm is direct to the consumer, which means that we have a website where the community can go online and purchase our products. And we also have a store here on the farm that's open on Fridays and Saturdays. We control the animals and the meat through the entire process, so we don't sell. All right, so we have to run over to the walk-in. We have a walk-in freezer and refrigerator on the farm here. So we're gonna move some stuff around in the walk-in because we have a delivery of pork coming today. A lot going on this time of year, so a lot of logistics going on, but we're gonna get that cleaned out and then we'll find something else to do. We are going to pack some orders. So we have a subscription box where people automatically sign up, and then every month or every 2 weeks, however they sign up, they get that box, and it's different every time. So we're gonna pack some subscription boxes. We have some other orders that need to go out. All that goes to UPS. We're gonna pick up our CSA while we're in town from Third Way Farm that we get every week. We're gonna go to the bank, the post office. Plenty to do in the rain. All right, we're over here at Independent Brewing, and we just picked up our CSA box from Third Way Farm. And if you don't get a CSA from a farm in the area, you're definitely missing out. So there's a ton of stuff that we get, and we get this each week. We pay in the beginning of the year, and we get a part of the harvest. So it's a typical week box, and stuff is amazing. All right, so we're out here. We're gonna move a group of pigs. They are up here, and they've been in here for a couple weeks now. So we are gonna move them further on the north side of the farm over the hill there. Yesterday we got fencing and some stuff cleaned up and ready for them. So we're gonna take their solar charger here. This is what powers the electric fence. So it's a quick pick it up and go, and open up some gates and move them over. Straggler pig that was in here with the other group. All 40 some pigs moved, except for one. And then that one bit through the hose that we had going to the new group. He's mad that he's not with the group, but the gate's open. He just can't figure his way through it. Tried to help, but he just gets mad. So we're at an impasse. All right, so this is the last group. So we've moved a lot of pigs today, all 3 groups. I'm still gonna get out in the field and check on everybody again, so I'll get. We have another group of piglets coming today, and so we have got the pig house all ready. So we laid down a brand new floor for them of hay, straw, and cleaned out water tank, electrolytes, apple cider vinegar, fresh feed, everything cleaned up, good to go in here. And so we'll come off the trailer, come in here. Got a shade cloth on here for this time of year. They'll hang out in here for a little bit. We'll keep an eye on them for a few weeks, and we'll be out to the pasture. All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging with us today. We got a little dark on us here to finish up. I wanted to show you some video of what we were doing, but essentially we do in the morning in reverse to some extent. So we're closing up the egg layers out in their structure there, turn off hydrants, getting eyes on all the animals, making sure everybody's good for the night, checking freezers, checking the store, just little stuff like that to finish up the day. And time to go inside for some dinner and work on QuickBooks and emails and all that fun stuff. So thanks, guys. Have a good one.
So I'm Tommy Shireman from Third Way Farm. I started farming about 6 years ago when the farm began, and I come to farming by way of ministry. So I studied for my master's in divinity and went on to do college ministry after that. And during those years of my life, I was really impassioned for this intersection of ecology and theology, trying to unite sustainable agriculture and mentorship and ministry with young adults. My work in the college ministry was really important to me, and I felt like working with that age group was something that I really wanted to continue doing. And hence, at our farm, we have an internship program where we bring on young people anywhere in their 20s up through their 30s or beyond who are passionate about this work and want to become equipped in it and to go out and continue to replicate the small regenerative farm movement that we are trying to be a part of. To be able to depend on simple things is something that I try to carry into the way that we farm, and that we thus are not dependent on a lot of large equipment and machinery and expensive technology. We do have some of that and believe that there's a lot of good that is coming out from really wise and genius farmers and engineers that are coming up with things that are helping us do this work in a better way. But at the same time, we do most of the work on our farm with our hands. I've really tried to design our farm around the principles of permaculture, and that is simply an idea that believes in a permanent agriculture and a way of life that encompasses all of the earth and the creatures and the people that make up this place. And so we have tried to approach our farm and our way of being on that farm as taking care of an ecosystem. We're not looking to figure out how to force the land to conform to our desires and to force it to produce something that we want. We want to have more of a relationship with it and work with it and learn to live within and work within its boundaries and its limitations. And so that's really how a thriving ecosystem works. All parts of it are important and all parts support the other. And so we want all the different elements that make up Third Way Farm to be interrelated and interconnected in a positive and regenerative way, most importantly. Having come to this from a place of ministry and mentorship to young adults, we have really depended on that age group to be an important part of the work that we do, but also a work in and of itself, in that we really want Third Way Farm to be a place where people can come and both find and learn these skills in agriculture that will help them to go on and hopefully continue to replicate and grow this movement of regenerative agriculture, but also a time and a place where they can find themselves. And so we believe that working with nature, working with plants and animals in the soil is regenerative for us as much as it is for the ecosystem and for the food that we then take from it.
Welcome back. We have a panel of experts assembled here to take your agriculture questions in just a few minutes. So if you could, go ahead and write your questions in the chat box in either Facebook or YouTube. Now, usually when we think about farming, we think about soil. But here in Harford County, we're a lot more creative than that. In fact, we can farm here without any soil, just with water. Now let's learn about hydroponics and emus, which are more commonly found in Australia, but are also bred right here in Harford County.
Hi, my name is Charlie Pendorf. I am from the Hydro Farm. We are a small hydroponic farm located in Churchville, Maryland, right on Route 22. So I am a firefighter paramedic. I've worked as a paramedic for well over 12 years. One day, as it may have it, I got injured and I got a bunch of bolts and rods in my back. And during the time that I was injured, I had a lot of time on my hands where I had an 8-month-old and she was eating strawberries like crazy, and I thought to myself, where do they come from? And how far do they have to travel to get here? And I didn't like the answers I was finding. So I started to learn how to grow them hydroponically for myself, and it just took off from there. Hydroponics is how you grow plants and produce without any soil. We use inert material to give the plants structure. We supply the plants 100% of the time with water and a nutrient-based solution mixed into the water. A plant needs some basic things to grow. It needs sun, everyone thinks it needs soil, but soil is there to provide the water, the nutrients, and the structure. We use less than 10% of the traditional farming methods water. We use a lot less space. We're able to go vertically. So there's a lot of great benefits for it. If you provide a plant everything it needs at all times, you're going to have a better product. Initially, we built the farm to be on a small platform. It was 100 foot by 100 foot square, and we were producing over 12,000 heads of lettuce in a month. And we were working with all the local restaurants here in Harford County. It started to get bigger and bigger to the point where we said, you know, we need to buy our own piece of property. And here we are. Now we are on a 10-acre property here in Churchville. I did not have any agricultural background whatsoever. You would argue that I went to the University of YouTube to learn a lot of this. However, most of the things that you can do with hydroponics, you have access to already. You don't have to buy the fanciest stuff. Most of what we built was from Home Depot, using PVC pipe, buckets, fittings, some real basic things. You can grow your own food and become sustainable and take care of yourself with what you can find at Home Depot or a box store. I didn't just go to YouTube. I did have to tour, I did have to do my due diligence and learn a lot about hydroponics. We went to a place called Chena Hot Springs, which is 60 miles north of Fairbanks, Alaska. It was 10 degrees outside. They had this beautiful structure, big giant greenhouse, gutter connect greenhouse, and it was 10 degrees outside and they were growing tomatoes. They grow tomatoes and peppers and all of their produce for that facility there. They don't have the ability to bring it in and out. And it was beautiful and everything tasted amazing. And we wanted to learn more. And they took us under their wing and showed us around the property. And the systems and the products that they use to grow, we actually use here at our farm now as well. I don't till, my back can't support it. I don't have a lot of those, the fancy equipment. Hydroponics gives me the ability to do all of my gardening right at my waist level. That means that it opens the possibilities to people like senior citizens, people who are in wheelchairs, people who are otherwise unable to do the things that they loved doing before. We can get a fresh product with very minimal effort. Anybody has the ability to do this with just the right tools in their hand. When I started the farm, we were more focused on hydroponics than anything else. So we started to look into getting chickens. We started initially our flock around 200 chickens, and we then realized we have coyotes here. So my wife said one day, let's get some emu. And I said, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You want to get a 6.5-foot velociraptor and you want to let them on our property? Yes. I don't know if I want to do that necessarily. So we compromised and now I have 10. And they surround my property around the chicken area, and I have not lost a chicken to a predator. They live symbiotically, they eat the same foods, and it's actually kind of a nice addition to our farm. Emus are actually very friendly. My daughter is regularly in there with them. She feeds them out of a small little coffee can, and we have people who are constantly coming to the farm to meet them. The biggest question that I'm asked is, why emu? In addition to our use for a predator protection, they are actually a USDA red meat. And while that not necessarily is what we want to get into, they are deemed by the American Heart to be one of the better meats that a very lean red meat that you can get. I've been working with a lot of students from North Harford High School where they come and they do their supervised agricultural experience, their SAE projects here on the farm, where they can explore the different portions of their projects. We give them the freedom to use our property for education. I have 4 students from Aberdeen High School from the Science and Math Academy, and these 4 gentlemen built a geodesic dome at the front end of our property. The plan is to automate it with coding with small computers and to create a self-sufficient greenhouse. Their idea is, if we were to colonize Mars, what would that look like? And how would we be able to grow our own food to support the mission? They are actively working to figure out other ways to heat it. Instead of using geothermal, we have one of the gentlemen is actually going to heat the greenhouse using decomposing mulch because it produces a ton of energy in the center of that pile. They're going to circulate pipe through it and then actually put the heat inside of the house. The students from North Hartford are going to act as the astronauts, or the Martian in this aspect, where they can receive an email from Mission Control over in Aberdeen High School to say, this is actually what needs to be fixed. We've been getting a lot of great support from our local community. I really encourage everyone to come and check out the educational opportunities here. So here at the Hydro Farm, we've only been at this location for 1 year. We've gotten a lot of ground, made a lot of ground here with the help of our friends and family. The hope is that we can expand our aviary and our poultry operation to the back end of the property here, and to be able to put up a few more greenhouses for the hydroponics. We also would like to have seminars where people can actually come here and do some more learning about how they can become self-sufficient, especially in the wake of the coronavirus. We have a lot of programs going on for education. I encourage you to kind of check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Hydro Farm and see how you can grow with us.
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Yes, it's prize time.
All right.
Yes, all right, Sarah. Yep, she's into it. We want to thank our donors for these great prizes. We selected our winners randomly from our registration list. Didn't try to pull any crazy stuff here. And we'll mention just a few winners now. The rest of our winners will be contacted by email. So are we ready?
I think we're ready.
Okay, all right, good. First winner is Ellen Potter of Falston, Maryland. And Ellen, you just won yourself a gift certificate for a bucket of blooms from our favorite Celadon Hill. Congratulations.
Right.
Sarah, would you care to participate?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
How about that one?
Oh, this is a good one. Gift cards for wine tasting from Hartford Vineyard.
You can't win.
No, I can't win. But the one who does win is Leslie Greenlee Smith of Belcamp.
All right, Leslie, tip a glass for us. We've got a $50 gift card to Pairings Bistro from Visit Hartford, and the winner of that to a fabulous restaurant is Cameron Lewis of Bel Air.
All right.
We need a studio audience here, I think.
All right, so the next one is a $30 gift certificate for the meat market at Highview Farms. Okay. And that goes to Dorothy Gallion of Pasadena.
All right, Pasadena, wow, from a ways away. $25 gift certificate for a tour or merchandise from Three Oaks Farm Alpacas. Ooh, and the winner is Carly Palacios, I believe it is, in Bel Air. Carly, congratulations. You ready for another one there, Sarah?
Sure.
Okay, how about some pork products?
All right, pork products, $50 gift certificate for pork products from Deer Meadow Farm. And that goes to Franklin Kuzinski of Aberdeen.
Okay. And our final winner and prize, $20 gift certificate for organic produce and eggs from Third Way Farm up in Havre de Grace. Tommy Sharman and the gang up there. Goes to Gene Sack of Falston, who should be shopping at Rousdale Farm, but that's okay. And there you have it.
Yeah, congratulations to all our winners. All right, well, we've already learned a lot about the history of Hartford County's agriculture, sustainable farming, and soil, and I bet many of you watching have questions. So please write your questions in either the YouTube or Facebook chat. Our moderator for our panel is Andy Ness, an agriculture agent and faculty member with the University of Maryland Extension's office in Hartford County.
Great, so thank you. You've heard from several of our experts already today, and I would like to reintroduce Nick Bailey, Tim Gerber, Charlie Pendorf, and Rick Holloway. So they will be here to answer any of your farming questions that you may have. So looks like I will start with the first one here. So this one is for Nick. So you have a background in marketing. This is important talent for your farming today. So explain how marketing is such an important factor in the business of farming.
Sure. So I was fortunate enough to have a background both through school and in other industries. And our farm is direct to the consumer. So everything we do is build relationships, and then we are able to serve the customer from there. So everything from the back end and software and all the stuff that goes into allowing the customer to find us, and then leading them on their journey to purchase our products. And then after the sale or if it takes them a little bit to make their first purchase, communicating constantly with the customer, letting them know what's going on at the farm, how we can serve them, and how we can meet their needs. You know, it's a lot about being authentic and just showing the customer what our day-to-day is like, and then diving into the products themselves and all the benefits of them, how to cook it. It's really an entire separate business from the farm itself, is serving the customer. So in that way, marketing has been you know, just a huge part of what we do, and we think for farms that do what we do is essential for their growth.
Great. Thank you very much, Nick. So this question we can direct to Tim. So Tim, how do you know if you have the same type of soil that you showed us in the soil pit?
Well, you could go to the web soil survey, and the best way is just use a search engine, type in web soil survey, and it'll take you to a USDA website, and the instructions are helpful. It's a little bit challenging. It's not the most friendly website, I suppose, but you can actually just enter your address and it'll go to that site and then pick out an area around that, and it'll show a soil map. And the Chamonix is one of the soils in the county, but as Andrew said, there are 33 other ones. That map, then you could go from that map and pick out lots of interpretations, whether it's a good site for a house or what the crop yield would be.
Great. So Rick, how do you market the grain that you grow, and explain a little bit about the prices, that type of market?
All of our grain is marketed local. There is 3 or 4 grain elevators, we call them locally, within a 25-mile radius. And all of your grain, corn, soybeans, wheat, are traded on the Chicago Board of Trade. And we also have, on the East Coast, we're kind of in a what we call a grain deficit area, which is we use more grain here than what we produce. And that, in turn, gives us what we call basis, which basis is basically just what it would cost to truck or rail corn or soybeans into the East Coast to use them here. So we're kind of in a good area to grow grain, because corn, lots of times the basis on corn is 50 to 60 cents higher here than it would be in the Midwest. Soybeans are a little bit different. Soybeans are usually 40 to 50 cents under the Chicago Board of Trade in this area. And we do what we call forward contracting, which is actually pricing our crops before we even plant them lots of times. That way we can capture the highs in the market. Not always capture the highs, sometimes we capture the lows too. But we pretty much market corn and soybeans every month of the year, or sell corn or soybeans every month of the year. That way we can capture the highs. And it's all, like I say, truck locally. Sometimes we'll sell right out of the field if prices are good enough, and that helps speed harvest up too. So.
Okay, so Charlie, how could I start growing herbs hydroponically in my kitchen? Is hydroponics expensive?
That's a great question. So you can start growing hydroponically using commercially available kits, and yes, they can be a little bit expensive. you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons, because while those kits are very convenient and very easy, there's a priceless gain to allowing somebody who is elderly, for instance, to get back into gardening right in their kitchen, or someone who's in a wheelchair who can't exactly be on the ground. On the flip side, we've also taught children at the elementary schools on how to use recycled bottles out of the recycling bin to create hanging gardens with an inexpensive pump or something to that effect in their windows. So you can do this both expensively or inexpensively. Most of the supplies you can get for a DIY kit, or even the commercially made kits can be bought right in your box store, either from like a Home Depot or a Lowe's.
Great. So our next question is for Nick. How do you ensure that you are providing adequate micro and macronutrients for the plants in your system?
Sure. Good question. So we rotate cattle, chickens, and pigs across the land together, and the ground rests after that. So we have a multi-species operation, just like you would find in nature. You take a quick template out of any natural area, you'll find multiple species that work together to suppress pathogens and promote good macro and micronutrients in that environment. And so by using multiple species, planting what we call cocktail cover crops, and honestly, just what the old timers call the farmer's eye, and of course we soil test as well to get the data behind it, and water test. But really, it's just a lot of observation and then when we harvest our products, when we harvest our beef, harvest our pork, we have great relationships with our butchers, and we're able to look at that carcass on the table and actually have takeaways from how we raise that animal, and maybe if we change something or had a control built in, we can take a lot away from how the meat itself looks as well.
Great, thank you, Nick. So, Tim, this question is for you. It says, I think I have clay soil. How can I improve the topsoil in my garden?
That's a good one. Well, first, for a lot of people, they think they have clay soil, but it's really more like a silt loam. So that's the good news. In a neighborhood, chances are the original topsoil isn't there. That in preparation for building the site, that topsoil may have been removed, some of the subsoil may have been removed and then put back in the same reverse order, but it's not quite the same as that subsoil that I showed earlier. So it's really critical in a home site to have a soil test to find out just what the nutrients are. And so the University of Maryland Extension website's a great place to start. They have a video that shows how to collect samples and where to send them and all of that. That would be the first place I think I would start.
Great. All right, so our next question here looks like Charlie. So is hydroponics organic?
So that's a very difficult question. Hydroponics has been around since the Aztecs, and even possibly before. However, only in the past, say 10 or 20 years, has it been a debate on whether the USDA considers it organic or not. Organic certification, a lot of times, for the most part, has to do with how you amend and treat your soil. And since we don't have soil, one side of the argument is can't be organic. On the other side, since we don't use chemicals in our process, we don't use any herbicides or pesticides, it's very clean. And all of our mined mineral fertilizer is put into the water, and we use it in a very, all of our resources in a very eco-friendly way. So the argument on the other side is, why can't we be organic? What we would encourage you is to check out a hydroponic farm and see for yourself and make your own decision.
Good answer, Charlie, to a complex question. So our next question here, Rick, this one is for you. So what do farmers do to stay educated about the latest science and technology that is involved in farming?
It's a good question. We do multiple things. The University of Maryland always has what we call midwinter meetings, agronomy meetings that give us information. We have to go to them also to get credits for certain things like pesticide credits to be able to keep up to date on chemicals and to spray our crops. A lot of our learning is done through the internet, over the web. There's multiple different sites, different things you can go to. One good site that we use a lot is called agweb.com, and it's full of information, and it spans from East Coast to West Coast. It's not just the East Coast or certain geographical area that it covers. Magazines, we're always looking for new information to keep up to date on things.
Great. Okay, so let's try another question. So Nick, why is a CSA important instead of just going to the farm when the season opens? So I don't know if you guys have a CSA, but you could still speak to that.
Sure. We have a sort of a CSA program. We have a subscription box program where we call it Farmer's Choice. So we build a box out every month based on some parameters, and that customer has opted into that, and so they are recurring automatically in their payment and in that box delivery. For a vegetable CSA, a lot of the advantages are twofold. They serve the customer and the farmer. The way they help the farmer is that a lot of the input costs in agriculture is up front, and then you're waiting to realize that profit at the end of the season sometimes, or as you go along. So if the customer can buy into the farm and support the farm in that way with a deposit in the beginning of the season, it allows the farmer to purchase all those inputs potentially without going into debt, and really takes a lot of the stress off of the business side of the relationship for the farmer. And then the customer gets to enjoy everything that farm's able to produce throughout the season. We have incredible vegetable farms in this area that just provide amazing variety, tons of nutrient-dense product throughout the year. So it's really a win-win for everyone. I'd strongly encourage CSAs for everyone.
Great. Thank you, Dick. Okay, so actually it looks like you might be up again, but everybody can sort of chime in on this one, it looks like. So how has COVID-19 affected your business? Also, what do you do if it rains and you should plant? Hold on, that question. What do you do if it rains when you should plant? Maybe we'll just go with the COVID one first.
All right, sure. So around this time last year, March 2020, we just saw an immediate hockey stick growth in demand and sales. We realized, so in 20, I'll step back real quick. We've had a huge emphasis from our family and our operation on online sales and really growing into this new century with how we're going to get nutrient-dense local food to local people. And so in 2017, we went all in on online, and it paid off in 2020. And we saw hockey stick growth this time last year, where we were able to realize over 1,200% growth in demand and sales. And we kind of figured, where's this going to go from here? And we kind of thought it would step down a bit and still be higher than where we started. So we essentially, depending on who you talk to, we grew. We accelerated 3 to 10 years in our industry, whether it be through actual sales or technology or how we serve the customer. So the last 12 months have been incredible, and we're learning constantly, and we are down from that 1,200%, but well above where we were pre-COVID. And those who took the time to figure out how to serve the customer, especially prior to COVID, really were able to realize all that and be there for the customer when the industrial food system broke down almost completely and there was literally nothing on the shelves.
So do you have a similar input, or you want to go, Rick?
Yeah, COVID really didn't affect us because we're not like Nick, direct to consumer. Last spring, we thought it might affect us a little bit, but it ended up not, just with the supplies that we use in the spring. We got some of our reps, chemical rep and seed bean reps called and said, you might want to think about, what you need and order it ahead of time. But other than that, it has not affected us.
So we have been in operation mostly to commercial vendors up to now. Unfortunately, I wish I could have taken advantage of what Rick had said, because we had actually shut our operations down to rebuild at our new location, unfortunately right when COVID hit. While I didn't get the benefit necessarily of people coming to the farm and buying the things that we had growing, I did find that a lot of people wanted to figure out, when they realized that they couldn't get food for themselves, how can I be more self-sufficient? And the outcry of support for hydroponics has been crazy, because people came to us and said, well, if I can't get the fresh produce that I want, or if the main grocery store is down, I need to start thinking about, for the future, how can I grow my own things? And people came to me because they had, well, I have a townhouse or I have a condo. Can I grow produce on my balcony easily? And it's been really interesting that way.
And I will add that growth that we saw last year, when someone supports a local farm, they'll see a direct result. And I talked about that 3 to 10 year acceleration. We've expanded our team greatly since then. I mean, real jobs from Harford County residents that did not exist. And so when we saw that 1,200% spike, we didn't go out and buy a yacht. We reinvested right there in the farm. And so I think the community can be proud of that kind of economics.
Great point. All right, so we do have another question here, I believe. So is there any sort of local source for obtaining, say, cow manure or other type of maybe poultry litter or whatnot for use in your home garden? Anybody want to?
We have emus. We have emus. We have about 260 chickens that we're growing our flock right now. You can come on over and come get as much of that as you want. You guys.
Our animals during the growing season put it right on the land for us, so it is not collected during the winter. Excuse me. We have egg layers and some pigs in a greenhouse type structure. So we compost all of that, add carbon, and turn that throughout the winter. So we have a nice pile of compost out at the farm that we spread during the growing season when the ground can metabolize all that.
Very cool. Let's see here. So what are ways farmers have adapted to changes with climate and climate pressures? And this can be a question for everybody on this panel here. So you want to start, Charlie, since you're
I was
right
going to
here?
say, I could start on that, I guess. There was a water shortage over in Israel, for instance, and when we realized that we were having, over in Israel, they were having that problem, they switched to things like hydroponics, mostly because we use less than 10% of water from traditional means. When you say climate, do you mean just literally climate? So we started doing things with not just the hydroponics, but also with our greenhouse operations, with being able to remotely control that environment, not just physically being in there and opening windows, but also working with the local schools to actually create new systems and ways to monitor our environment. One of the things that people had done, in addition to talking to us about hydroponics, especially given the COVID situation, was how can I do this at home? There's a lot of those kits, those greenhouse kits, to be able to grow for yourself.
Us as larger scale row crop farmers, going to no-till has helped with carbon sequestration a whole lot, along with cover crops. We try to plant as much cover crops every fall as possible, because the more you can have living on the land all year long, the more carbon sequestration you're going to have. And there is, within the past couple years, a carbon trading program that has started. It's still kind of in its infancy. These big corporations are going to have to start watching their carbon footprint, and to do that, they're going to pay the farmers carbon credits, what they call carbon credits, which is, like I say, practices we do with no-till and cover cropping, and so they're going to have to start paying, and it's, some of them are per acre basis, some of them are a flat rate, but it depends on the company, and it's, like I say, it's just in its infancy, so we're just starting to learn about that and find out how things are going to go with that. So.
Yeah, I can chime in on that. So we have perennial pastures. We are constantly cover cropping behind livestock, whether it be herbivores or cattle. Then our chickens come through and clean up after the cattle. When we have pigs in the woods, we cover crop, broadcast behind the pigs as well. So like Rick said, leaving a living plant, living root on the soil all year round is immensely important. And letting the ground rest. We rotate the animals so that we don't stock them, so that ground is resting more than it's being used, which is just, again, mimicking nature. And really watching our make sure we're sequestering that carbon and making sure we have just the absolute best model we can do.
Okay, great. So we want to be mindful of everyone's time. So I think we're going to have to cut this short right here, but thank you so much to our panelists and our experts here, and thank you for everything that you guys do for local Harford County agriculture and also ag in general and your land stewardship. So we'll like to throw it back to our main hosts.
All right, guys, thank you very much. That was, I learned a lot, and I'm a professional farmer, but everyone can cultivate and protect the land. You don't have to be a professional farmer, especially home and community gardeners. Yeah, you can grow a lot of stuff just in that backyard. Let's now learn about community gardening in Harford County.
Anise Bloom, retired educator, library media specialist from Harford County Public Schools. And now I'm a master gardener. The Harford County Master Gardeners is through the University of Maryland Extension, Cooperative Extension, and typically it's taught by the consumer horticulturalist Joyce Browning. The Habit of Grace Green Team is a grassroots organization, and our projects are reviewed, evaluated, and implemented for sustainability for our community at large. And typically the projects are partnered with our municipality, Habit of Grace. The community gardens are rented seasonally, 10 by 10 plots. Many, many crops are grown, and it's just, the camaraderie is great. There are gardeners of all ages. Even had the Boy Scout troops this year, and the Girl Scouts were there gardening with us. So it's really a fun activity to get outdoors and get moving. The Heirloom Victory Garden was established in 2018. The very interesting thing about this garden is that everything that's grown and harvested goes to local food pantries. And we're very excited about one crop that was grown, and it's called a North Georgia candy roaster squash, which is a winter squash, and the Cherokee Indians were able to do the seed saving. And this is what it looks like. It's a beautiful squash, and it can be cured for up to 6 months, and that's why it's referred to as a winter squash. Open pollination is simply what it says. The pollinators, be they flies, wasps, bees, ants, beetles, any of those things, people don't always think of them as pollinators, but they are, and they come and pollinate the flowers. The fascinating thing about squash is that they open in the morning, and the male blossom comes up first, and then the female blossoms come up, and then they know to come and pollinate, and we get the fruit. So that's kind of just wonderful just to watch things happen. There's the apiary, and we were very fortunate this year. We were able to harvest 100 pounds of honey, and the raw honey has been bottled, and it'll be available on our website. The name is Have of the Honey, and it is just so delicious. The apiary is a couple years old now. We're in our second year, and with our first year extraction or harvest, if you will, of honey, honeybees are actually pollinators that are seasonal, and so they are very peculiar and very smart creatures. So we're October. It's in October they start getting ready for winter because flowers, the flora is sort of dying down. So they start bringing into the honey, but the very interesting thing is they kick the guys out. The guys have to go because they have to have enough food in the hive to make it through the winter. And what they do in the hive is they huddle and create their own warmth. So production as in making food or the reproduction process isn't going on then. That's reserved for spring when there's lots of food and flowers and wonderful. And then, in the summer when it gets very hot, another interesting fact, you'll see bees hanging on the outside of the hive. That's called bearding, and they're trying to cool down. Think Green, Eat Green is a project that has to do with plant-based sustainable eating. Everyone doesn't eat that way, but if you think about how your food is grown and what you're eating, then you might do it in a better, greener way. Zero Waste Project kicked off in June, and it was 2 years in the making, and that's another partnership with our municipality, and people around the city can bring their food scraps to this pickup point, and I am proud to say that we have diverted 6.5 tons of food waste from the landfill.
All right, well, looks like we're getting close to lunchtime, so it only makes sense for us to think about what to do with all this food that you and our farmers grow. Now let's meet Havre de Grace chef Bruce Clark, who owns River City Public House. Bruce is going to do a demonstration in honor of the spring harvest. Then we'll hear from Barry Klein, Director of Healthy Harford, about eating local and healthy.
Hello, I am Bruce Clark from Larapin Caters and River City Public House here in Havre de Grace, Maryland. And today we're going to do a little cooking demonstration with some local farm fresh ingredients from the local Harford County area. Okay, we're going to be going ahead, we brine this chicken. Brining a chicken is a process that we're going to take salt, sugar, and water and dissolve together with different aromatic herbs and vegetables to get a flavored broth, like a flavored liquid, that the chicken will sit in for approximately 8 to 24 hours to absorb the flavor of the brine, Plus also through osmosis, the salt in the brine helps to seal in the juices of the chicken and bring some moisture into the bird. And then the next thing you want to do, be sure with the chicken, is you want to dry it off very thoroughly before you season it up and get it in the oven. Okay, now that we have our chicken dried off, we're ready for seasoning. Now we have a little bit of salt and pepper, and then we also have some fresh thyme that we actually picked from our garden right outside. And then we're going to turn the chicken over. A little more salt and pepper. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to tie the chicken up, because you can see how the legs are opened up. We're going to get the chicken into a better shape so the breast meat cooks more evenly with the rest of the chicken, so it'll also give you a nice moister bird. So I want to show you a quick and easy way that people get intimidated by trussing a bird. All you really have to do is wrap a couple wraps around the legs, and then take the rest of the string and go around the chicken one time and tie it together, and it should hold its shape and make a nice pretty presentation, and plus also keep the chicken breast a lot moister. Okay, and our next step is we're going to get this chicken in the oven at a preheated oven about between 350 to 375 degrees. Now the chickens, you can roast them anywhere from 300 to 425 degrees, all depending on how crispy and how brown you want your skin. I like to roast them around 350, get a nice even brownness, and the chicken, the lower you cook the chicken, when it comes up to temperature, it'll fall off the bone a little bit more if it cooks longer. That's the only difference. All right, next we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get our sweet potato dish started. We are going to do a very simple dish. We're going to simply roast the sweet potato in its skin in the oven until it's nice and soft, and then we're just going to basically take it and smash it, and we're going to season it up, and it's a very healthy alternative. So when you do a sweet potato, when you want to roast it, what we're going to do is we're going to take it and poke a couple holes in the sweet potato, basically to let out the steam. So as it roasts, it lets out the steam and roasts nice and evenly. Okay, what we have here is the sweet potato as it came out of the oven. And you'll notice how it lost a lot of its moisture already, because you can see the excess skin on the sweet potato. All we're going to do is take your knife, run along the tip of the sweet potato, open it up, and just go ahead and squeeze the sweet potato flesh into a pot. And that is all you need to do. And now all we're going to simply do is we have our sweet potato in the pot. We're going to add a little seasoning to it. We're going to add a little salt and pepper. We're going to add a little bit of cinnamon. And to give it a little bit of spice, we're going to add a little bit of chili powder to it. And also, even though the sweet potato is plenty sweet, I'm just going to add a touch of a local honey from Lancaster County. And we're just going to do about a teaspoon. And then all we're going to do is take a spoon and we're going to gently mash up our sweet potatoes. And then you can just reheat them right on the stove right before you're ready to serve them. And that is really all there is to it. You have a nice, sweet, healthy, nutritious side dish to go with our chicken. All right, now we have our chicken and our potatoes in the oven. We're going to go ahead and get our salad together. And hopefully everything's going to come together for a nice, simple meal. Okay, first thing I want to do is just go over some of the ingredients. We're going to make a very simple salad dressing that almost anybody in the family can make. And I actually teach fourth graders in a program here in Harford County called Days of Taste, that we go in and we teach kids how to make simple, healthy meals. Now, this is going to be a simple 4 or 5 ingredients. It's basically good quality apple cider vinegar. We're going to put 2 tablespoons of honey into the mixing bowl. There's one. And there's a second. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start whisking the honey into the vinegar. And it should start getting cloudy. And then, as we're whisking in a slow, steady stream, we're going to add the oil. Okay, now we're just going to try our dressing to make sure we don't need to adjust it any. And a basic rule of thumb, you can always add it, but you can never take it away. Actually, that's pretty good, so I think we'll stay with that. And we're gonna set the dressing off to the side. And then over here, we're gonna get all our ingredients and we're gonna do a quick talk about these real quick. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through all our ingredients that we have for today's salad. All right, the first thing is we have two different kinds of radishes. We have and radishes come in various colors, red and purple skins, but we also have what's called a watermelon radish. And that's what it looks like when it's sliced, and we have those cut up right here. Okay, our ingredients are our radishes. We have our 3 different radishes right there. We have sweet peppers, yellow and red, and I have carrots. Now, I have it cut 2 different ways just to show you a difference. This is just what you would get your standard grated carrot, but for a little different presentation, you may just want to do like strips of carrot, which is basically just taking the vegetable peeler and that's the peeling of the inside of the carrot. This gives it a different texture, different presentation. And also we have dried cranberries and pecans, and we're going to add an apple, a local apple, to the salad also. I'm going to cut it in half. All right, what we're just going to do is we're going to lightly dress our salad. We can always add more if we need it. We'll give it a gentle toss. And we'll give it a taste. And we'll need a little bit more dressing. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and get our bowl ready, and we're gonna make a presentation for the table. Got a lot of nice colors to it already. We're gonna start with our apples. And our radishes. I think we'll go with the ribbon cuts of the carrot. And both peppers. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to drizzle a little bit more of the dressing over all the vegetable garnish. And give that a nice gentle toss in the salad, bringing some of the greens up to the top, let some of the garnish fall to the bottom. For a little crunch, we're going to add some toasted pecans, and a little extra sweetness, some dried cranberries with a little bit of tart to it also. And there we have a lovely fall salad. Okay, and here's our lovely chicken, all ready to go, nice and brown. All right, first thing we're going to do is remove the trussing string. This is just simply untying it. And you'll notice how the bird kept its nice shape. All right, now we're just going to go over a basic way of cutting a chicken. Now, when we like to cut them, we like to take it and first cut back the thigh meat and open the chicken up. It gives you a little bit more stability. And then we're going to take the knife and you're going to run along the edge of the breastplate, tracing down the rib cage of the chicken. And you'll notice how nice and moist that breast looks. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. And then we're going to remove the thighs, the leg quarters. Okay, and then we're going to save the carcass there for a nice stock for later. And then simply we're just going to split the leg and thigh apart from each other. And then we're going to take the breast and cut it in slices.
Hi, I'm Barry Klein. I'm the Executive Director of Healthy Hartford, the Healthy Communities Initiative of Hartford County. Healthy Hartford was founded in 1993 as a partnership between the University of Maryland, Upper Chesapeake Health, the Hartford County Health Department, and Hartford County government with the intent of improving the health for all Hartford County residents. We work through education, policy change, system level improvements in order to create the healthiest community in Maryland. Our goal is to improve the health of all Hartford County residents, and some of the food-related programs that we do are food access, food security, community gardens, and the Days of Taste program through all the public schools here in Hartford County. So chicken is the #1 protein that a lot of Americans love. It's an excellent source of protein, especially in its ratio between protein and fat. So if you're looking for a low-fat protein, chicken is excellent. The one thing about when you're plating something for optimum nutrition is that you should have 1 piece of protein, probably no more than 4 ounces depending on your body size. 4 ounces is about this size, the size of your palm. But that the whole rest of your plate really should be vegetables. You could have some starches, obviously. Grains are an important part too, but if you can make those starches also vegetable based, you've added on a whole another level of nutrition. So lots and lots of greens, lots of rainbow colors, flavonoids, carotenoids, antioxidants, all of those are going to be in your plate for optimal health if you have a ton of colors on your plate. So back when you were in elementary school and they told you to eat a rainbow, there actually was a lot of science behind that. Eating a lot of different colors actually helps with inflammation in your body. So whenever you're eating, you're actually either inflaming or deflaming your body. Eating a lot of different colors, especially plant-based colors through radishes, peppers, sweet potatoes, all these different things actually help address free radicals in your body, which happens through oxidation, pollution, stress, smoking, all of those things. So these things can actually help mitigate your chances of developing illness, whether it be cancer, cardiovascular disease, or type 2 diabetes. Eating a healthy diet, eating a lot of plant-based foods, lots of different colors and rainbows actually will help you be healthy, not just in the short term, but for the rest of your life. So there's no such thing as a bad food. A lot of times meat gets a bad rap. People always think red meat bad, cardiovascular disease. The reality is everything in moderation and moderation in everything. So when you're eating meat, obviously try to get as clean meat as you can. A lot of our locally sourced food here, especially in Hartford County, is produced locally. You get to know your farmer. You can ask them how their meats are raised. But again, going back to that 4-ounce rule, 12-ounce steaks, 20-ounce steaks, that's not what we need. We really need 4 ounces. So keeping that in mind, and again, you can eat everything, but just be mindful that when you're looking at your plate, 4 ounces of protein, and then all the rest really should be vegetables and fruit. Again, carbs get a bad rap. Starches, potatoes, grains, those kind of things. The reality is that we need carbs for energy. The problem with the typical American diet is that we eat too many of them, as we know since our obesity rate is 3/4 of the population. So it's not to say don't eat carbs. There's never should be anyone talking about don't eat fill in the blank unless it's processed unhealthy food. But the reality is carbs have a necessary place, especially for very athletic people. The idea, though, is to not make them more than 1/4 of your plate. So obviously, if you buy your produce locally, it's going to be fresher. Also, you can get to know your farmer, so you'll get to know exactly how your vegetables and your meats are grown and produced. The fresher something is, obviously the higher nutrient value is in it. So, as fresh as you can get, the better.
The agriculture industry has changed in so many ways in the last 2 decades. One very exciting development that very much helps to support our local farms is agribusiness and agritourism. So let's meet County Executive Barry Glassman, who has raised sheep and still does, I believe, and the advisor to the executive, Billy Boniface, who breeds award-winning racehorses. They are great advocates for agribusiness and agritourism here in Hartford County.
County Executive Barry Glassman. Being born and raised in Hartford County, I learned at an early age growing up in a rural village how important agriculture was, not only to the families in the area, but to the local economy. My father, in addition to working a couple of jobs, had a small farm on the side, and we raised beef cattle and goats and sheep to help support the family in that area. I also grew up in the area of Level Village, and the Briney Farms and several of the farms there grew strawberries and blackberries and blueberries and so forth, and tomatoes. And I spent many a summer days as a teenager putting up hay for local farmers at $1 an hour, but enjoyed every moment of it. And so as I began my public service, I carried really the thought that our farmers were the first stewards of Harford County land and water resources. And so I've worked hard for land preservation, preserving our agricultural heritage as we go forward. A lot of folks don't realize that agriculture is still one of the top drivers of the local economy, not only in Harford County, but the state of Maryland. So all the spin-off businesses, whether it be fencing, grain, always has been an integral part of Harford County's economy. So it's important that we continue that tradition of raising crops and producing jobs through agriculture. So it's important that we continue that work. For many years in Harford County, our local Farm Bureau and farmers in the county dreamed of having a facility located that really centralized all the services and programs related to agriculture. So one of my early goals in our administration was to create an agricultural center where we brought state agencies, local agencies that really could come together and give farmers a one-stop shop for many of their services. And in addition to that, our second phase really was the Grove, which is an opportunity for whether they be young farmers or farmers just trying to start out with an agribusiness to have really an affordable spot, and it's merely a stall in a barn, to begin to market their products to the public and see if it works before they take the next step at trying to rent a larger facility. So sometimes we think of really these new facilities, the ground floor that we have for high-tech businesses, business incubators. It's really a business incubator for farmers. One of the first buildings reconstructed here on the Ag Center site was the Justin Gorsuch House, which really dates back to colonial times, one of the oldest structures left in Harford County. Just like agriculture has changed from the early days of the settlement of Maryland in technique and become more modern with computer, GPS techniques to really produce more crops. But the economy has also changed over the years. Farmers now have to create what I call niche businesses or side businesses and direct market a lot of their products. This has been done in farm to table. When I served in the state legislature, we passed a farm brewery bill, which created a whole new market for local farmers to be able to create craft brews and market their farms. We have wedding venues. So the local ag economy has changed, and the modern agricultural economy involves tourism, direct marketing products, and it's not just as simple as growing and harvesting crops, although a lot of folks still do that. The face of agriculture has changed, and really the county's farmers had to do it to stay competitive and to keep their farms in activity. One of the great things about Harford County is that we really value agriculture as a part of our history. And in addition to that, over the years, Harford County has placed about 1/4 of all its land in some type of preservation program. For the last 20 years, we have developed one of the most successful agricultural preservation programs in the country. The second test is not only preserving the land, because one thing is for certain, we don't make more agricultural land every year. So I think it's incumbent upon every policymaker to make sure that they have efforts to preserve that land, but also to preserve farming and the history of farming so that the next generation can, through agribusinesses, agritourism, have generation after generation continue to farm. And that's really what we've tried to do here in Harford County.
Hi, my name is Billy Boniface. My family came here in the early 1930s when my great-grandfather Fritz Boniface loaded up his family and moved from England to take the role of farm manager at the operation that is now Harford Community College. In the early 60s, my family established Bonita Farm, which was located down in Cresswell, which is the farm that I grew up on. In the early 80s, we moved our operation to Darlington, where we currently are located, and still live on the farm with my wife, Barbara, in Darlington. The horse industry is made up of very many sectors. You have the racing sector, the competition sector, recreational sector, and the up-and-coming therapeutic sector. When you take all of those, they're very active in Harford County. And you have a lot of milestones that are very important to the county. You have, historically, Bully Rock, which was the first thoroughbred stallion ever imported to the United States, landed here in 1730 in Havre de Grace. You have one of the most premier steeplechase races that takes place right here, My Lady's Manor, in the spring, April of every year. And that is a huge event that kicks off the steeplechase season throughout the state. You have multiple breeding operations that are national players in the industry. You have Country Life Farm, Murmur Farm, and you have Bonita Farm, our farm, my family's. And we're probably most famous for having a Preakness winner. In 1983, we won the Preakness with a horse by the name of Deputed Testimony. He's one of only 8 Maryland breds to ever win the race. And that was 38 years ago. There hasn't been a Maryland bred since then. And he's one of only 11 horses from the state to ever win a Triple Crown race. And that's been taking place for 145 years. So that's very impressive. And he's a horse who grew up and spent his entire life here in Harford County. I do remember him foaling very, very well because it was on my 16th birthday. So he and I have a good relationship. He lived a long career with us, served as a stallion after his racing career, and passed away on September the 18th back in 2012. I got to help him rise and nurse his first time and held his head the day he took his last breath. So we had a pretty good relationship. And we're really eager to see another Maryland bred win, and hopefully it'll be one of ours, either Country Life's or Bonita Farms or Murmur Farms here in Harford County. And just down the road from the Ag Center, you have Chesapeake Therapeutic Riding, which is part of the therapeutic sector of the equine industry in the county and in the state. The ag industry is made up of so many sectors. You have livestock, you have crop production, you have the nursery, and many other sectors. Now, when you take the equine industry and all of its sectors and you combine them, they're all that much stronger. And that's why horses are so important to the rest of agriculture. It allows the mill to sell more products. It allows the crop production guy to make hay for all the thoroughbred and other breeding operations in the county, and all the recreational aspects of it. So they're very important to one another. So how does my role in county government benefit from my being in the ag industry? Well, I don't only talk the talk, I walk the walk. Our farm is one of the first farms that went into land preservation in the state from the equine industry back in 1984. It's 400 acres that's preserved in perpetuity, and many have followed suit. I understand that it's important that as we develop laws and policies and procedures, that they're common sense oriented, that they allow agriculture to operate and remain productive. Land preservation is great, but if you don't allow agriculture to stay productive after that, it's no good. You know, one of the most famous quotes that Winston Churchill is most known for is, he once said that the outside of a horse is good for the inside of a person, and that's very true. And while our relationship with the horse has changed, our bond has not been broken.
One of our hopes from today's program is that all of you watching will not just realize how amazing Harford farmers are, but that you have a role to play in sustaining local farms and farmers. Now I'd like to introduce you to Bill Amos, who manages farmland preservation, Senator Jason Gallion, who is the only full-time farmer in the Maryland State Senate, and June Jones, farmer, philosopher, and agricultural advocate.
Hi, my name is Bill Amos, and I am a manager of Harford County's Land Preservation Program. It's great to be out here at Indian Springs Farm, a farm that is placed under conservation easement in perpetuity. And I'm going to briefly talk about the preservation programs in Harford County. We have over 57,000 acres preserved, and we're working on an additional 2,000 acres currently. We offer 3 different programs: the County Land Preservation Program, the State MALF Preservation Program, and the State DNR Rural Legacy Program. These programs work with landowners to encourage them to sign up and actually do conservation easements on their farm. So these farms in the future will always be able to be farmed and conserved their natural resources. Harford County, showing our master land use plan, and I just wanted to point out the things we had talked about. This color shows our inverted T, or our development envelope, that was adopted in the late 80s and concentrates residential and industrial and commercial growth in this area. And that leaves all this other area that you see here in white for our land preservation efforts. And each one of these colors, our blue color here is our county program, our orange color is the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation, and our dotted green color here is our Rural Legacy Program. So all these programs, I work with landowners, we work with landowners to make offers to come into the program, but you can see the connectivity of them. You can see certainly the green color is the county and state parks, but the importance of this, that every county in Maryland is required to have a master land use plan. It really helps in selling the easement programs because we know where we want to concentrate growth in. In the future, we're always looking for additional landowners, and we're always working with landowners in the county to encourage them to come into the program. It's really important for all landowners and all citizens of Harford County to understand the programs because of the protection that it gives. They can certainly help tremendously by talking to their elected officials and explaining the importance of open space. You know, the benefits really to these programs is not only for the farmer, future landowners to preserve the large blocks where we have opportunity, but it really benefits all the citizens, and that's really important to understand the preservation programs. The benefits in many ways. Number one, like we said, it preserves land for future agricultural operations. Number two, it really allows us to keep these places in open space, which limits and prohibits residential sprawl, which slows down, of course, and limits the amount of traffic, the amount of infrastructure that's needed, such as schools and libraries and police and everything. It's an old saying, we always say that cows and corn don't require schools and all those other infrastructure needs. So it really saves the county a dollar in investment in land preservation through the transfer taxes. Really saves a tremendous, some individuals say tenfold, of the cost of those infrastructure costs if it was residentially developed. The other benefits, of course, is water recharge areas, wildlife habitat, protection of the Chesapeake Bay with the requirement of buffers and mandatory soil conservation plan and forest management plans. So there's so many benefits to land preservation other than preserving it for the agricultural industry, which in itself is extremely important.
Hi, my name's Jason Gallion. I'm blessed to serve in the Maryland State Senate representing District 35, which covers parts of Harford and Cecil counties. I'm also a full-time farmer where I have beef cattle and sell hay to horse customers, and I've been working the last 5 years as the agricultural specialist for Harford County government, where we work to promote the Buy Local initiative and other things to help our local agricultural community. I'm proud to say that I am the only full-time farmer in the Maryland State Senate, and I think that's important in a citizen legislature, that we have folks from all different walks of life represent these different life experiences and viewpoints. My past in agriculture is including from the time I was a child where, my father always had a few cattle around that I worked with. Right out of college, I decided to go out on my own. I started a dairy business, which I did for 5 years until transitioning to what I do now, which is having beef cattle, a cow-calf operation, and also selling hay to horse customers throughout Harford and Cecil counties. The biggest challenges for new starting out farmers are a lack of access to capital and also to land. At Harford County government, we have a ag grant program that helps new farmers as they start their ag businesses with funding that is a matching grant to help them start out in the ag sector. One important legislative milestone that was passed a couple years ago in the Maryland legislature, which I was proud to sponsor, was a truth in labeling milk bill. That basically says that milk is derived from an animal, cows and such, and not from a plant base. So that's a big issue for our dairy farmers, and I was proud to support that. We recently passed legislation in Harford County at the local level to help farmers out with ag retail sales. What that update did was to allow farmers to sell products in other farm stands. Harford County, Maryland's on the forefront of ag practices and legislation through the different programs and assistance they offer. So our ag grant program is a great tool for new and starting out farmers as they start down that new venture of agriculture. And also we support our dairy farmers through different projects, such as some dairy farmers have decided to try to expand out and sell their own ice cream. So we do all kinds of those things to support our local farmers. For those of you looking to have a way to promote the ag sector through advocacy, the best way to do that, I would encourage them to join their local Farm Bureau chapter and stay in touch with the issues going on. And also serving in the legislature, it's very important. So if you hear of a certain issue and you feel strongly about it, take the time to sign up and let your voice be heard in these different bill hearings. So reach out to your legislators, whether they be at the county, state, or federal level. Send them emails, give them phone calls, let them know that these issues are important to you, because if they don't hear from you, those issues often will be put on the back burner. So please, I ask everyone that's a proponent of agriculture, let your elected officials know that that is important to you. Let your voice be heard.
Hi everyone, I'm Junianne Jones, videoing in from down here on the farm at Virginia Tech, where I'm earning a graduate degree in political theory and agrarian studies. I love Harford County, and I spend as much time there as possible at home working alongside my family at Jones Family Farm. Thank you for participating in our virtual webinar, Rooted in Agriculture. Your support for this program inspires farmers and food system advocates like me to continue our work. Farmers in Harford County play many roles. We are stewards of the land. We take care of farmland and waterways. We engage in ongoing training and education on how to be better and more effective at delivering nutritious, delicious, and sustainable food for all of our families. Farmers are joined in their continuous efforts to build a better food system by nutrition experts, teachers, environmentalists, politicians, and most importantly, you. The United Nations declared 2019 to 2028 the decade of family farming. This international forum acknowledges the enormous role that family farmers play in delivering 80% of the world's food supply to your door. In unison with Sustainable Development Goals, the UN also sees a key role for family farmers in reducing poverty, reaching a global goal of zero hunger, mitigating and adapting to climate change, reaching gender equity, and securing clean water. Farmers need you to help with these efforts in your local community and as a member of the national and global community. If you're not sure how to get involved, here's some ideas on how you can engage in advocacy. First, talk to your farmers. There are dozens of farm stands and farmers markets in Harford County where you can speak directly with people who grow and sell your food. Engaging in an open discussion about farming practices, shared values, and future goals is a great way for you to get to know your farmers and for your farmers to get to know you. Second, join an organization. No individual needs to act alone when it comes to building a better food system and protecting what we love about the one that we have. Whether you join a local soil conservation district, a group committed to cleaning up the Chesapeake Bay, or your local chapter of a farmers advocate group like the Farm Bureau, your voice can make a difference and you can make an impact in collaboration with others who are committed to protecting our land and ensuring our food is sustainable, equitable, and tasty. 3, pay attention to policy. Hundreds of bills pass through various levels of government every year at the county level, the state level, and the national level. Many of them will have direct or indirect impacts on the ability of farmers to do their job and to do it with all of the values I just mentioned intact. The national level Farm Bill is not the only policy to learn about and engage with. Keep an eye out for bills related to agricultural land use and zoning, the labeling of agricultural products like milk, the use of terms like farmers markets and local. Subscribing to an email list is an easy way to keep up to date about policy. I believe our democracy works best when we pay attention and engage with our representatives and appointed leaders. If we want to build a better food system and protect our land, our farmers, and our county heritage, we must all step up and take responsibility for learning about agriculture and speaking up on issues that will affect it. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Harford County is rooted in agriculture. Our roots are your roots too, and we invite you to join us and grow together. Thank you. And it seems like my audience agrees. Bye.
Well, Steve, I think this has been a fabulous program. And I don't know if you know this, but it's common in Harford County to have a toast before a meal that honors our farming roots.
Did not know that. But my bet is it has something to do with what we're holding. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Let me introduce Kylan Keehan. And Kylan's going to tell us a little bit about this incredible toast that we're about to give here, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Steve. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this year's symposium, Rooted in Agriculture. My name is Kylan Keehan, and I was honored to be a part of this event. Over a century ago, agriculture was the #1 employer in Harford County, Maryland. Today, Harford County still has a vibrant agricultural community that is knitted together by generations of farmers who have worked together to preserve and protect their way of life and their farmland. Harford County has over 56,000 acres preserved and continues to be a national leader in farmland preservation. I am proud to live in this great county and to be a part of our agricultural community. Thank you to all our farm families whose hard work and dedication has inspired us and taught us the importance of agriculture. We will continue to support you, and I encourage all of you to join us in advocating for our farmers. So let us take a moment to raise our glasses to celebrate our farmers who work hard each day to provide for us. We appreciate you and all that you do. Cheers to our farmers.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Salute. All right.
Delicious. All right, well, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone here for joining us, and this has just been a great program.
Unbelievable, and it was great to meet you.
Yeah.
Great to meet all you folks, and we've just had a blast here today, and hope you viewers did as well. And there's more to come as far as farming goes here in Harford County, for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we hope to see you live and in person in March 2022 when our annual symposium will be at Edgewood High School.
All right. Stay well, everyone, and
eat local.